Man, I wish I had a clown wig right now because, oh boy, I look like a fucking idiot for what happened last night. Well, at least I had an absolute strong week 13. 14 of 16 is actually pretty good. But anyways, welcome back to Grizzly Talks Football. Today we got week 13 NFL reactions. If you are new to this series and you want to see the past episodes that I have already uploaded, I will leave a link in the description with the entire playlist so that you can watch all those episodes so that you're all caught up. And also have it for future videos whenever I post them. Also make sure you hit that red subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single video. Make sure you smash that like button. Without further ado, let's get to the games. Kicking things off, we had the triple header on Thursday. First up, we had the Lions outlasting the Bears 23-20. If it wasn't for an idiot head coach by the name of Matt Eberflus, the Bears could have actually won this game. Or at least send it to overtime. But nope, their head coach didn't know how to call a timeout. Caleb Williams actually had a very solid game. He had 250 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air. Rushing game sucked. Leading receivers, DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, who had a combined 13 catches, 170 yards, and 3 touchdowns between the two players. Unfortunately, 0 interceptions for the defense, but 2 sacks, including one for Griffin Dexter. Defense tried their absolute hardest, but it's going to be hard to stop Detroit when they can throw and run the ball quite effectively. Jared Goff had another solid game. He had 21 of 34, 220 yards and 2 touchdowns on the day. Sonic and Gibbs and Montgomery, they had a combined 30 carries for 175 yards on the day. No touchdowns though. Leading receiver was, of course, Amon-Ra St. Brown, who had 5 catches for 73 yards, but the only 2 touchdowns through the air were from Sam Laporta. Welcome back. No interceptions, but they forced 5 sacks in this game. DJ Reader had 2. Zadarius Smith had 1.5. He constantly got hurt all the time, but he just came back. And there was also a guy named Al-Qaeda Muhammad. He came in first play after Zadarius went down, and he got a sack on Caleb Williams. That was pretty full circle moment for him. Jake Bates absolutely doing his thing on the kicking game, making 3 field goals, scoring 11 points. Don't fret, Lions fans. You do not have as many close games as Kansas City right now, so I wouldn't worry about losing your number 1 spot right now. But it's safe to say that Chicago might be eliminated already. But the new head coach, whoever it's going to be, has a lot of work to do. And it starts with the offensive line. Up next, we had a little close game with the Dallas Cowboys outlasting the Giants 27-20. They're still cowgirls in my book. Come on, cowgirls. You only beat the Giants. Come on. Is this really something to celebrate? Because you're losing out on a high draft pick. But hey, it feels nice to get your first win at home this season. Really? To all the Giants fans that say that they were right about cutting Daniel Jones was their best option. Sure, he was pretty bad, but he was their best option because look at your live stats. 180 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick. Sure, he had a touchdown, could have been 2 if it wasn't for the fact that he was short at the goal line. He led rushing because other than that and Tyrone Tracy's touchdown, the rushing game was just horrid. Well, more mid. No surprise, Malik Neighbors led receiving with 8 catches for 69 yards. Nice. And as far as defense, absolutely nothing. Literally nothing from the defense at all. Cooper Rush had himself a pretty good game. 21 of 36, almost 200 yards and a score. Rico Dowdle had himself a game, 112 yards and 5 yards to carry and a touchdown. Kavontae Turpin led receiving with 4 catches for 50 yards. I'm very sure CeeDee Lamb got hurt and somehow they still won because they were playing a team called the New York Giants. The only touchdown went to Brandon Cooks. Interesting. Cowgirls defense had 6 sacks on the day, including 1.5 from Micah Parsons. There was also a pick 6 in this game by DeMarvion Overshown. I literally saw the play. He tipped it up to himself and he got in the end zone. That's like a play that some of the best corners would make. I'm just kidding. These cornerbacks don't know shit. With this loss, Giants are out of the playoffs. Hopefully you can get a quarterback that can lead you to the promised land and also get yourself a good offensive line as well because that was what Daniel Jones had problems with, but apparently you refused to fix it. And also, nice job ruining your tank, Cowgirls. You really look like idiots. And Jerry, I think it's time to sell the team. I think you have lost total control of your team. And the final game of this Thursday Thanksgiving slate was the Thursday night game between the Green Bay Packers and Miami Dolphins in a cold Lambeau Field, with the Packers winning 30-17. This was one of my L picks this week. If only I knew that the Dolphins were going to be playing in the cold, I would have picked differently. Well, at least Tua had himself a really good game, like 37-46, 365 yards and 2 touchdowns just to lose. I know why, because the rushing game was shit. Jonnu Smith led receiving again with 10 catches for 113 yards, but the touchdowns went to Devon Achane and Tyreek Hill. Welcome back to the touchdown column again, Tyreek. And as far as the Dolphins defense, they were pretty much lifeless. As for Green Bay, Jordan Love had himself a good game as well. 21-28, 274 yards, 2 touchdown passes on the day. Josh Jacobs led rushing, even though the rushing game was a little mid. He had the only touchdown on the ground. Tucker Kraft led receiving, much to my delight, 6 catches for 78 yards, and the 2 touchdowns of the day on the passing game went to Jaden Reed. And unfortunately, the Green Bay Packers defense had themselves 5 sacks on the game, much to the dismay of Dolphins fans. And then Brandon McManus exists to kick 3 field goals and make all 3. This just further proves that besides the Chicago Bears, the NFC North is a juggernaut division. Seriously, those 3 teams, the Packers, Vikings, and Lions, are just some of the elite teams in the entire NFL. As for Miami, I think you need a difference maker. I think it's too early to call you playoff contenders right now, but I would say if you get a difference maker, he could lead you to some great things, let me tell you. Before I discuss this game, I want to come clean. I made a huge mistake. I called this game a Sunday game. This was actually a Black Friday game. Yeah, just so we're clear. This was played on Black Friday, not on a Sunday. Let's just get that right. Anyways, we had the Chiefs surviving another game this time against the Raiders again. 19-17. That's 2 one-score games that the Raiders lost to the Chiefs. They can't keep getting away with this! So many games that Kansas City could lose. They end up pulling a rabbit out of their ass and they still win. Ed O'Connell came back from injury and he had himself a very impressive game against the Chiefs defense. That just shows that Kansas City's defense is complete garbage. 23 of 35 for 340 yards and 2 touchdown passes. Rushing game was a bunch of mid. Sincere McCormick had 5 yards to carry, which is interesting. Are we even surprised at this point that Brock Bowers has 10 catches, 140 yards, and a touchdown? He's pretty much single-handedly carrying this Raiders team. And then there was another touchdown by Trey Tucker. 4 sacks for the Raiders defense. Kayvon Chasen had 1.5 sacks, and there was also 1 from Max Crosby. It's just a shame that this rookie center, he did admit to fault for the bad snap, bad miscommunication, but man, that really did cost them a big win. This was the right time for it. How do you go from beating the Ravens to losing a ton of games in a row? Rushing game was a bunch of dosh, and Patrick Mahomes, he didn't have himself a great game, but not a bad game either. 26-46, 300 yards and a touchdown. The leader receiving was actually DeAndre Hopkins, who had 4 catches for 90 yards, but the only touchdown in this game was by Justin Watson. What? Besides the 3 sacks, 2 of them coming from Chris Jones, and that fumble recovery that sealed the game, and also Nick Bolton's 10 tackles, it was really nothing real special for Kansas City's defense at all. They couldn't stop the passing attack at all. Oh yeah, one more thing. Chiefs scored 1 touchdown all game because Matthew Wright, their 3rd kicker, had to step up, and he sure did. He kicked 5 field goals and made 4 of them for 13 total points. The MVP of this game was absolutely the kicker. Definitely not the defense. Absolutely not. They were trash all game, and then they want to step up. Yeah, no. MVP of the game goes to the kicker for the Chiefs, Matthew Wright. And with this win, Kansas City clinches a playoff berth, and the Raiders are pretty much eliminated from the playoffs. Sad. Let me just tell you, Raiders, you need to bolster up that offensive line because it's not going anywhere. That rushing game, it's like mid at best, but it's not good enough. Like, you need to bolster up your offensive line. A lot. Now we're on to our Sunday games. First up, we got the Houston Texans outlasting the Jags 23-20. Houston's finally back in the win column. At this point, I think Jacksonville is going to be pretty much eliminated from the playoffs no matter what happens because, well, they dumped themselves in a hole they couldn't get out of. Fortunately, Trevor Lawrence got cheap shot in the second quarter by Azeez Al-Shaair. I think he should be suspended. That was a complete cheap shot and uncalled for. The offense did a lot better than they have done recently. C.J. Stroud, he had a pretty solid game. 240 yards, 22-34 for a touchdown, with Joe Mixon having 100 yards on 5 yards to carry and a score. Nico Collins had 100 yards again, 8 catches, 119 to be specific, and the only touchdown through the air went to Dalton Schultz. I haven't said that name in a while. No sacks, unfortunately, but there was an interception by Derek Stingley Jr. Yeah, it was almost a difference in the game, but then again, offense just really couldn't move the ball, really, at the end, where it mattered most. Oh yeah, one more thing, Jacksonville had a touchdown in garbage time, pretty much. Oh yeah, that interception was because Trevor Lawrence was starting the game, and then he got injured because of the cheap shot. But then Matt Jones stepped up, and he actually played well. 20 of 32 for 240 yards and 2 touchdowns. First good game for Matt Jones in a long time. Rushing game was a bunch of mid. And of all people, the lead receiving, it was Parker Washington, who had 6 catches for 103 yards and a score, with the other touchdown going to Brian Thomas. I think he's going to be a great receiver in the future. More of both of them. 2 sacks in this game by Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines-Allen. Unfortunately, no turnovers forced. If Houston would stop playing down to their competition, they would be one of the elite teams in the AFC, but they're still controlling the AFC South, so they're still looking good for making the playoffs, despite the fact that they are 2 games ahead of Indianapolis right now. Jacksonville, you need a quarterback or something to help Trevor Lawrence for you guys to even be relevant again when that 2022 season happened. Speaking of Indianapolis, the Colts outlast the Patriots 25-24 when Joey Sly unfortunately missed a 68-yard field goal that would have set a record and won the Patriots the game. It came up a couple yards short, which is really unfortunate. It was online, unfortunately it was barely short. It's nice to see in the passing game Anthony Richardson is back to his old self. 12 of 24 for 100 yards, 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions through the air, and he also had a rushing touchdown as well. Oh yeah, and Jonathan Taylor had 4 yards to carry and 96 yards. He was really there to score a receiving touchdown along with Alec Pierce, with Michael Pittman leading receiving with 5 catches for 42 yards. Nick Cross and Zaire Franklin had a combined 2.5 sacks. There was also E.J. Speed out there, the 3 suspects. Johnny Blackman had an interception in this game, and also DeForest Buckner got in the sack party. Good job, man. Defense absolutely played well, but unfortunately the offense was a little bit inconsistent, much of it because of AR5. Drake May did the best he could, 24 of 30 for 240 yards, a touchdown, and unfortunately an interception, with Ramondre Stevenson leading rushing with 73 rushing yards, but Antonio Gibson had 9 yards to carry, 62 rushing yards, and a score on the ground. Hunter Henry led receiving with 7 catches for 75 yards, and the only touchdown of the game, that went to Austin Hooper. I still remember he was a pretty good tight end when we had him, as for in the Falcons. No sacks for New England, but they were able to get 2 interceptions from Christian Gonzalez, who is a very solid elite corner, and Christian Ellis. If Joey Sly would have been 4 of 5, the Patriots crowd would have erupted. Unfortunately, he did make 3 of 5 field goals. He did score 10 points, though, which is not too shabby. And also, the Patriots only punted once. Very unfortunate for New England, but the real prize is the number 1 pick. So, in the end, I guess both teams won, I guess. Indy better hope Denver has a complete fall off, because if not, they're not getting in the playoffs. Up next, we got the Chargers beating the Falcons in Atlanta 17-13. This game fucking pissed me off. You've already seen it, but this Chargers offense didn't score a single touchdown in this game. Justin Herbert had 150 yards, 16 of 23, and somehow J.K. Scott threw a pass? Rushing game was a bunch of bullshit because, J.K. Dobbins was injured. That is such a shame that J.K. Dobbins can't catch a break with these damn injuries. Ladd McConkey blew the receiving core out of the water with 9 catches, 117 yards. We could have stopped him all game. 1 sack by Tart and 4 forced interceptions. Tarheeb still had 2 and returned 1 for a touchdown. The only touchdown for the Chargers, by the way. And the other 2 picks were because of Marcus May and Derwin James at the end of the game. Other than the defensive touchdown, Dicker the kicker had the other points. And by God, we paid Kirk Cousins $45 million a year to throw 4 interceptions on 250 yards at 24-39 passing. So, are we geniuses for drafting Michael Penix, or are we still idiots, or are we both? That remains to be seen. Bijan Robinson had an absolute monster day. Well, maybe a good game. 100 yards on 4 yards of carry and a touchdown. The leaders in receiving for us were Ray McLeod and Drake London. They had a combined 13 catches for 181 yards. How in the world did our defense not play well? Actually, no, our defense did play well. They forced 3 field goals. They had 5 sacks in this game, including 2 for Arnold. And also the fact that Younghoe Koo was still able to make 2 field goals, even though he missed an early field goal in the first quarter that would have put us up early. It still kind of bugs me, but at least Younghoe Koo is doing well for himself. And then we only punted twice in this game. Our offense should have done way better moving the ball. How the hell do we have a $45 million quarterback throwing 4 interceptions? We have a coach that has a losing record with us, and we're still in the lead for the division. We should have this division on lockdown, but of course, the coaching staff wants to be a bunch of clowns. And now if Tampa Bay wins and we lose, Tampa Bay is going to be first place. And also the Chargers, great win for you guys. You guys are still contending for second place in the AFC West because Kansas City is running away with this whole division. Up next, we had the Seahawks outlasted the Jets 26-21. Let me just say it. Jets sucks. I don't even know what to say except Geno Smith had a pretty solid game, 20-31 for 200 yards and a touchdown pass. Zach Charbonnet got the only touchdown. Other than that, the rushing game was a bunch of mid. The leader in receiving was actually Jackson Smith-Njigba with 4 catches for 74 yards. The only touchdown, though, went to A.J. Barner through the air. Defensive player of the game was definitely Leonard Williams, 2 sacks and a 91 yard interception return for a touchdown. That was one of the touchdowns in this game. That was one of the main difference in this game. Jets rushing game was also mid. Aaron Rodgers, 21-39 for 185 yards, 2 touchdowns and interception. Not horrible. Devontae Adams led receiving with 5 catches for 66 yards and a score, and the other touchdown went to Isaiah Davis. I haven't said that name at all yet. And there was also 3 sacks for the Jets defense, including 2 from Will McDonald. Seattle's still first place in the NFC West. That's really all that matters, unless it's until the end. What really matters is who's leading at the end of the season, the regular season. Seattle, you better look good about every week if you want to take control of that division. That division is just utter chaos. Up next, we have the Titans getting smacked by the Washington Commanders, 42-19. A good old ass whooping was what the Commanders needed to get back on track. Rushing games, surprisingly absolute horrible, with Will Levis actually having a pretty solid game. I mean, he had 18-37, 212 yards and 2 touchdowns. His accuracy is worse than Anthony Richardson, but he still threw 2 touchdowns and no picks. And both of them went to Nick Westbrook-Akine. 3 catches for 61 yards and both of the scores through the air. 2 sacks, including 1.5 from Arden Key and an interception by Amani Hooker. Jaden Daniels had himself a very solid game. He had 25-30 for 200 yards, 3 touches through the air and an interception, but also a rushing touchdown as well. But man, the Titans defense completely sucked. They allowed over 250 yards rushing, including 103 yards and a score for Brian Robinson and 94 yards and a touchdown to Chris Rodriguez. No surprise that Terry McLaurin led receiving with 8 catches for 73 yards and 2 touchdowns, with the other touchdown going to Zach Ertz. 2 sacks, no picks forced, but they were able to stop the run efficiently. And also one more thing, Zane Gonzalez is washed. Tennessee, look, you need a lot more than just another quarterback. Because, I don't know, man, there are a lot of problems with Tennessee right now. Washington, hopefully you make the playoffs as a 6 or 7 seed. You guys are doing actually pretty solid for yourselves, though. Up next, we got a shootout of a Sunday game of the 1 o'clock slate. Most definitely, we got the Steelers outlasting the Cincinnati Bengals 44-38. Let me just tell you, Steelers defense surprised me, but the Bengals defense we all knew was going to be garbage. But man, Russell Wilson put on a clinic, 9 of 38 for 414 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick this game. Besides Najee Harris's 5 yards of carries, 75 rushing yards and a touchdown on the ground, rushing game was pretty lackluster. George Pickens led receiving, but only had 3 catches for 74 yards in the score, and the other 2 touchdowns went to Calvin Austin and Pat Freiermuth. Nice to see that Arthur Smith never changes to give Calvin Austin a score. There were 4 sacks in this game, including 2 from TJ Watt. Let me just tell you, he is still elite. There's also an interception by Dante Jackson. This defense surprised me for how badly they couldn't even stop Joe Burrow in that offense. Oh yeah, and Boswell is still him. He's still my MVP. 3 of 4 field goals. He had to take over and kick all field goals for Steelers to win a couple of games. He's got to be MVP, right? Joe Burrow had a good game as well. 28 of 38 for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick on the day. Chase Brown had himself 70 rushing yards and a score. Other than that, rushing game wasn't really used a lot. And 3 receivers got touchdowns. We had Jamar Chase leading the receiving corps with 6 catches, 86 yards and a score. T. Higgins, 5 catches, 69 yards and a score. And Iosifas having 3 catches for 35 and a score. Besides the 2 sacks and a pick 6 by Cam Taylor-Britt, unfortunately the defense could not stop a soul. I'm not sure about Zach Taylor, man. He's an offensive guru, but when it comes to defense, he can't be bothered to take anyone that will improve their defense at all. That's why the Bengals could miss the playoffs this year. Steelers, you're doing quite well for you. I had you dead last in my division predictions, and sure enough, you are leading the AFC North right now as we speak. Keep proving everybody wrong, man. And the final game of the Sunday 1 o'clock slate saw the Cardinals come up short against the Minnesota Vikings 23-22. I tried to tell everybody, do not sleep on those Cardinals. They will make a difference and make every game that shouldn't be a game, they make it a game. Unfortunately for Kyler Murray, he did have 31 of 45 for 260 yards. Unfortunately, he did have a touchdown and 2 picks, though, in this game. Rushing game was solid. We had James Conner get 68 rushing yards on the day, a 4 yards carry. Trey McBride, no surprise, led receiving with 12 catches for 96 yards, with the only touchdown through the air going to Marvin Harrison Jr. He's back. Defense played lights out with 5 sacks, including 2 for Collier and 2 from Mack Wilson. But let me just say, Chad Ryland was the player of the game for the Cardinals. 5 of 6 field goals. He got 16 points on the day. As for Minnesota, it was pretty much the Sam Darnold show. 21 of 31 for 230 yards and 2 touchdown passes. Rushing game was just absolute abysmal. Justin Jefferson is back to leading the receiving corps with 7 catches for 99 yards, and the touchdowns went to Johnny Munt and Aaron Jones out of the backfield. Only 1 sack for Minnesota, but they did get 2 interceptions from Shaq Griffin and Byron Murphy. Where did Shaq Griffin come from? And then John Parker Romo is still fucking elite at kicking. 3 of 4 for 11 points. Crazy stuff. Kickers went off this game. Just unfortunate for Arizona that too many mistakes cost them in the end, but don't worry. You still can get to 500 and perhaps make the playoffs. Minnesota's got to be a playoff lock at this point. Kicking off the Sunday 4 o'clock slate, we had the Rams beating the Saints 21-14. Oh, New Orleans, you had a halftime lead. You didn't allow a single point in the first half, and then defense falls flat on their face. Matt Stafford had a pretty solid game, 14-24 for 180 yards and 2 touchdowns on the day. Kyro Williams has made his return, 100 yards on 7 yards to carry and a rushing touchdown this game. Puka Nacua leads the receiving corps, 5 catches for 56 yards and a touchdown. Low receiving yards numbers, but we'll take it. Demarcus Robinson had the other touchdown. And surprisingly, Cooper Kupp only had 3 catches for 17 yards. I don't know if he got hurt or not. Someone let me know. Defense, unfortunately, did not have any real bright lights at all, but they did step up when it mattered. Well, in the crunch time. Derek Carr had a solid game as well, 24-37, 180 yards and touchdown pass. Alvin Kamara was the saving grace of the rushing offense with 112 yards and 5 yards to carry. And of all people, Taysom Hill, the Mormon Missile, led the receiving with 5 catches for only 37 yards, but the only touchdown in the game went to Marquez Valdez-Scantling. And that was in the fourth quarter. 2 sacks for this defense, including one from Brian Brees, and that was pretty much it. Thank goodness for Blake Griff's field goals at the first half. Unfortunately, New Orleans just could not have the defense stop them at all. Rams are still contenders, even with those injuries at the beginning of the season, believe it or not. New Orleans, I don't think they're catching Atlanta or Tampa Bay anytime soon. I think it's time to start looking for some cap space. Yeah, that's right, New Orleans. Your cap situation is not the best. Up next, we had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers somehow going to overtime with the Carolina Panthers, with the Bucs winning 26-23. How do you let the Carolina Panthers take it overtime? You're not the Giants. But somehow Baker Mayfield actually got hurt in this game. 21-33 for 240 yards, but 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Ooh. At least Bucky Irvin and Rashad White showed up for the game. Bucky Irvin had 150 yards in a score. Wow. Only receiving touchdown was by Mike Evans. He had 8 catches for 118 yards with that score. And of course, the defense had only 1 sack from Elijah Kancey. Oh yeah, and they also recovered a fumble. That was a big turnover. But shout out to Chase McLaughlin, 4 of 5 field goals, including the game-winning field goal in overtime. But man, Bryce Young has definitely improved. 26 of 46 for 300 yards, touchdown through the air, and a touchdown on the ground. Adam Thielen, of all people, had 8 catches for 99 yards and a touchdown. That was not somebody I thought was going to get it. And the Panthers defense actually played solid. They had 4 sacks and they also had 2 interceptions from Charles Smith-Wade and Xavier Woods. Another game where the kickers went off, and Pinheiro, 3 of 5 field goals. Unfortunately, he missed 2 of them. That would have probably won them the game. Also, doesn't help that Carolina's defense allowed Tampa Bay to get into field goal range to set up the game-winning field goal in overtime. Honestly, at this point, just give Tampa Bay the division because the Falcons are just going to squander it like they always do. And the final game of this Sunday 4 o'clock slate, we have the game of the week, America's game of the week, between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Baltimore Ravens, with the Eagles coming out on top, 24-19. Pretty much self-explanatory. Baltimore doesn't have a pass defense. Jalen Hurts didn't really have to lift a finger passing. 11-19 for 120 yards and a touchdown through the air. He also had a touchdown through the ground. Saquon also had 100 yards, a 5 yard to carry, and a score. A.J. Brown led receiving with 5 catches for 66 yards, and the only touchdown went to Dallas Goedert. Only thing really to celebrate is the fact that the Eagles defense actually had 3 sacks in this game. Lamar Jackson actually had a pretty good game passing, 23 of 36 for 240 yards and 2 touchdowns through the air. Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson combined for 160 yards rushing. Zay Flowers led receiving with 3 catches for 74 yards, but Mike Andrews and Isaiah Likely, both of the tight ends, got touchdowns. Only thing really for the defense of Baltimore was that they got 2 sacks as well. But man, what has happened to Justin Tucker lately? I mean, he missed 2 field goals and an extra point. That would have won them the game. Safe to say, Justin Tucker just needs to hang up his cleats and just walk away because he's pretty much done at this point. Baltimore's still a very good team, and Philadelphia is an elite team. No wonder they're the 2 seed of the NFC. I still think the Eagles are the only team that can compete with Detroit. In the NFC, of course. Keep your head up, Baltimore. You still can make the playoffs. Seriously. And up next, we got the Sunday night ass whooping. We had the 35-10 game where the Bills absolutely dismantled the 49ers. If Christian McCaffrey is out for the season, oh boy. I mean, Jordan Mason is a pretty good running back, but CMC is a difference maker. It's just the Nick Bosa injury as well, really hurting this team a lot. Brock Purdy, man, what happened to him? 11 of 18 for only 94 yards. He got held to under 100. 130 yards between Mason and McCaffrey, but the only touchdown was on the ground was by Isaac Guerrero. Really the only offensive touchdown in the game. Jawan Jennings led receiving, but he only had 3 catches for 56 yards. And by God, I am not joking when I say The defense of the 49ers was non-existent. And Jake Moody, good lord, one of 3 field goals in this game, and he made an extra point, but who the fuck cares? My gosh, Josh Allen didn't even have to lift a finger passing. 13 of 17, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air, and a rushing touchdown as well, along with James Cook and Ray Davis. The 49ers just couldn't stop a soul. Oh yeah, and Josh Allen also had a receiving touchdown in this game as well. Now, along with Matt Hollins, and the leading receiver was Dawson Knox. Only 1 sack in this game, but they also forced 3 fumbles in this game. Oh yeah, and by the way, Josh Allen also caught his own fucking pass. Unbelievable. It's safe to say that this 49ers team does not have a pulse at all. Buffalo is definitely on its way to the playoffs, well, because they won the division. But man, how could one team go from an NFC championship contender, maybe a Super Bowl contender, to being so lifeless? What the fuck is going on? And finally, we had the Monday Night Football shootout where the Broncos beat the Browns 41-32. This was my other L pick. Oh, if only Jameis didn't turn the ball over so many times, they could have actually won this game. Rushing game was non-existent, but Jameis Winston, look at his stat line, 34-58, 500 yards, 4 touchdowns, unfortunately 3 interceptions. You know who also had a video game-like day? Jerry Jeudy, 9 catches for 235 yards and a touchdown. Elijah Moore had 111 yards on 8 catches as well, and the other 3 touchdowns went to David Njoku, who had 2 of them, and Nick Chubb out of the backfield. Browns couldn't get to the Bo Nix at all, but 2 interceptions by Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome actually give me a little bit of faith in the Browns defense a little bit more. Let me just say, Jameis and Bo Nix combined for almost 800 yards passing. Jesus Christ, man. Bo Nix on the day, 18-35 for 300 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. He did not have a great game. Jaleel McLaughlin had 6 yards carry for 84 yards, but the rushing touchdowns came from Michael Burton and Javonte Williams, who I already cut. 200-yard receivers for Denver, Marvin Mims, who had 3 catches for 105 yards and a touchdown, with Cortland Sutton also having 6 catches and 102 yards. Unfortunately, disregard the sacks, because the main catalyst of this game was 3 interceptions and 2 of them going for touchdowns. Yeah, Jaquan McMillan had a pick 6 and so did Nick Bonito. Take away the defensive touchdowns and Cleveland wins this game. But man, those turnovers were brutal for Cleveland. Cleveland needs a really good quarterback. Not a Deshaun Watson kind of quarterback, like an actually good young quarterback. Jameis Winston's doing them some favors, but then he's also throwing picks like he is 2019 Jameis Winston. As for Denver, you're still looking at the wild card right now. You're still fighting for second place in the AFC West. Don't worry, Kansas City has this division on lockdown. You can still make the playoffs though, as long as you don't completely collapse. And that is going to do it for this episode of Grizzly Talks Football. If you enjoyed it, make sure you smash that like button, hit the red subscribe button down there, hit the notification bell so you do not miss a single video. This is the Grizz, and that's all from me. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Peace!